Tonight, new details on the events that led to the mistaken killing of 3 Israeli hostages in Gaza. Questions over military conduct.
Put the best offer on the table to get the hostages back alive.
And growing calls to bring remaining hostages back home. Plus, a new development in a woman's disappearance.
7 years of investigative diligence has brought us to this point.
A man charged with murder in the death of his estranged wife. And taking a closer look at ketamine.
This is kind of a Pandora's box.
The potential dangers of the increasingly popular treatment tied to actor Matthew Perry's death.
CTV National News with Heather Butts. Reporting tonight, Todd Vanderhayden.
Good evening. New details tonight about what happened to 3 Israeli hostages who were mistakenly shot and killed by Israeli troops. An investigation is now underway as the deaths are putting new pressure on Israel to reach a deal with Hamas to release more than 120 other hostages. It comes as Israel's leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, promising there will be no let-up in the war on Hamas, saying, quote, military pressure is necessary both for the return of the hostages and for victory. Without it, we have nothing. We get the latest on the conflict from CTV's Jeremy Sharon.
70 days. That's what this clock in Tel Aviv reads tonight. It's the amount of time that has passed since hostages were taken by Hamas on October 7th.
We have no time.
This father of a 19-year-old hostage joined thousands in Israel, calling for its government to take immediate action and make a deal to free more than 100 remaining hostages.
Put the best offer on the table to get the hostages back alive. Alive. We don't want them back in bags.
The plea comes with new urgency after Israel's military said it accidentally shot and killed 3 hostages. One of them laid to rest at this funeral in southern Israel, as an IDF official today says they were shirtless and waving a white flag when they were shot.
There's no doubt that Israel has to tell its soldiers the rules of engagement should be much more stringent so that they cannot make these kind of mistakes again.
Throughout Gaza, the fighting continues. Israeli forces continue to bombard targets in the north and the south. In the southern town of Rafah, residents are sifting through rubble after an overnight strike. This house was a shelter. We had nice memories here, our nice stuff. There's nothing left, said this young boy. Across the enclave, internet and telephone lines have been down since Thursday evening, compounding the struggle for survival. The United Nations says an increasing number of Palestinians are on the verge of starvation. While in the West Bank, a UN report says 2023 has been the deadliest year for Palestinians on record.
Now, amid growing global support for another ceasefire and a push from U.S. officials to prioritize civilian safety, tonight Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says they'll keep fighting despite the pressure. Todd?
CTV's Jeremy Sharon in Ottawa. Thank you, Jeremy. Refugees from Gaza who are desperate to get to safety can count on Manitoba. That's according to Premier Wab Kinew, who wrote a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying the province is ready to welcome people from the region. Kinew expressed his deep concern about the dire humanitarian situation unfolding in Gaza. Kinew adding it should happen, quote, in a way that allows these potential refugees to return to the region in the future. The RCMP have charged a youth in Ottawa with terrorism-related offences that allegedly targeted Jewish people. The Mounties say the young person communicated instructional material related to an explosive substance. This is the 5th young person arrested on terrorism charges in Canada in just the last 6 months. The RCMP say they are seeing a concerning trend of violent extremism on the internet, especially among young people. A major break in one of the biggest missing persons cases in Newfoundland and Labrador. Jennifer Hillier-Penny disappeared 7 years ago. Now the RCMP have arrested her estranged husband and charged him with first-degree murder. CTV's Garrett Barry reports from St. John's.
Today, a major breakthrough for a family and a community that's been waiting for years.
7 years of investigative diligence has brought us to this point.
Police have arrested Dean Penny, Jennifer Hillier-Penny's estranged husband, and are accusing him of first-degree murder.
From the beginning, our goal has been to get answers for Jennifer's loved ones and to bring anyone responsible for her disappearance to justice.
It's been more than 7 years since Jennifer disappeared, last seen at Dean's house in St. Anthony on Newfoundland and Labrador's northern peninsula. The couple had begun to separate, but she was dropped off at his house on November 30th, 2016, to spend time with her daughter. She was never seen again.
We acknowledge that 7 years is a very long time to go without answers. The anguish felt by Jennifer's family and loved ones in the community was always top of mind as we worked our way through a complex investigation.
Her disappearance shocked the small town. Her family pleaded for years for answers. Some members of her family met with police this afternoon, but weren't yet ready to speak with reporters.
Given the amount of time this investigation has taken, there's been some emotional up and downs with Jennifer's family, obviously. Our investigators have worked very hard to maintain a good relationship with the family. That remains true today.
Police in St. John's wouldn't say what exactly had changed in their 7-year investigation that allowed them to make this arrest.
These investigations take time, cannot be rushed, and must be pursued with diligence and commitment to investigative excellence. All tips and leads must thoroughly be examined.
Their investigation isn't over yet. Police continue to search for Hillier-Penny's remains. They said today they're following all the leads. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
In Ontario, the family of Soliman Fakiri has spent nearly 7 years fighting for vindication. Tonight, they hosted a final vigil in Toronto, just days after a coroner's inquest revealed his death at the hands of jail guards was a homicide.
Canadians need to see what they do, what the correctional system does to vulnerable Canadians who suffer from mental illness that shows that these individuals should not be in jails, they should be in the hospital. And when I saw my precious brother in that hallway video, that video I did see, first time cold, defenseless, scared, I thought about what his last moments were, when he was dying.
Soliman was arrested in 2016 after he allegedly stabbed a neighbor while he was experiencing a mental health crisis. He died shackled, pepper sprayed, and covered with a spit hood while face down on a cell floor. Fakiri's family is still hoping that criminal charges will be laid. Hockey games have been canceled this weekend at a local arena in Saint-Eustache, Quebec. That's north of Montreal. It's out of respect for the family of an 11-year-old boy. He died Friday after being hit in the neck with a puck. Officials say the boy was wearing all the proper protection at the time. CTV's Rob Lurie has reaction tonight from the community.
People stop by the local arena in Saint-Eustache to drop off flowers and say prayers. We're all devastated, says this mother of 4. We just want to do whatever we can to support the family. As a hockey mom, she says, this one hits close to home. On Tuesday, an 11-year-old player was accidentally hit by a puck in the neck during a practice. He was rushed to hospital where he died. City officials say he was wearing all the required protective equipment, including a neck guard.
I was shocked.
George Larac played almost 700 games in the NHL. He says what happened appears to be a freak accident.
Almost like a 1 in a million situation where the puck hit the perfect place, and unfortunately we lost a kid.
Larac points out neck protectors don't offer perfect protection against pucks. And while he doesn't know what specifically happened in Saint-Eustache, he feels there may be a need for more precautions during practices.
During practice, there's a lot of pucks on the ice, and kids are excited. They want to shoot all the time, And when you want to shoot and you shoot everywhere, maybe sometimes they shoot on the board, they shoot in the net. All you need is one kid to skate in front of you at the same time you wind up, and it's too late.
While his heart goes out to the family, Larac is also worried about the boy's teammates and friends.
No kid should ever witness something like this.
Psychologist Pierre Faubert says if a young player is traumatized by what happened, it's important to ask what they're feeling.
Put yourself at their level so that you're answering their questions instead of projecting your own fears. Parents, we do that.
And he adds, reassure young players that what happened here is extremely rare.
Things like that can happen. The likelihood that it will happen now is not strong. And just go out there and play.
The league says hockey here will resume after the weekend. But first, the community needs some time to grieve. Rob Lurie, CTV News, Saint-Eustache.
Police in Manitoba are investigating fake nude photos of underage girls. The photos were generated by artificial intelligence. Parents were alerted about the explicit pictures of female students in grades 7 to 12 at a Winnipeg high school. The original pictures had been altered and then shared online. Given some victims may be minors, it could be deemed child pornography.
Whether or not it's a real representation of that child or a digital representation of that child, it is child sexual abuse material. And so there are legal consequences.
Officials at the school, Collège Bellevaux, say the fake images were created and shared by other students who later turned themselves in. A new proposed law from the Canadian Senate is trying to limit children's exposure to pornography online, but the move is facing a backlash from both critics and from the Trudeau government itself. It comes as experts say children are being exposed to more and more porn at younger and younger ages. CTV's Colton Prale reports.
An act to restrict young persons' online access to sexually explicit material.
A proposal to enforce age restrictions when accessing online pornography is at the center of the latest online divide in Parliament. This week, the Protecting Young Persons from Exposure to Pornography Act passed second reading, supported by all three opposition parties, but not the majority of Liberals. It calls for all Canadians to prove they're over 18 before accessing any website that makes sexually explicit content available online. Critics say the bill expands beyond dedicated porn sites. It could include Reddit, X, even Google Images.
Means that it is far broader, far more encompassing, and far more invasive than simply targeting this particular concern.
There are also significant privacy concerns over how Canadians will prove their age and what personal data will be needed to do it. A spokesperson for the Heritage Minister says we share the goal of a safer internet experience for children and youth. However, this bill is fundamentally flawed.
I'm disappointed by the Liberal vote, and I just say, let's study this bill in committee. Let's make it better. The idea is to protect children.
It comes as psychologists say children are being increasingly bombarded by sexual imagery.
I've had a lot of experience with children stumbling onto pornography, and it can really affect their understanding of sexuality and consent and all sorts of things.
Similar bills have passed in France and in some states, where companies like Pornhub have responded by geo-blocking their content so that no one in the area can access it. Todd.
All right, Colton Prale reporting tonight. Thanks, Colton. There's word that Ottawa is preparing a plan that would allow hundreds of thousands of undocumented people to apply for permanent legal residency in Canada. But while that plan is in the works, the number of deportations has actually surged. Now, some activist groups are calling on the Trudeau government to fast-track the program and put a pause on the deportations. CTV's Kamal Karamali reports.
We want status.
A march.
Deliver your promise.
To the mailbox.
Fulfill your promise.
Dozens of migrants, most of them undocumented.
Keep your promise.
Sending letters to Canada's immigration minister with the message to end deportations and grant them legal status.
It is a failure of immigration policy and the denial of rights to working class people that creates undocumented people.
Each one with a story on how they came to Canada with a dream.
I am living in Canada undocumented, almost 15 years.
Only to have it dashed.
Very difficult for you to survive. So you have to work under the table. You cannot tell so many people about your stories.
Monea Jess hasn't seen her children in years after her application for an open work permit was denied.
I'm crying because, as I said, it's Christmas season. Every kid's looking forward to something from their parents. You know, I can't see my kid, so I'm very sad.
2 years ago, Justin Trudeau asked then Immigration Minister Sean Fraser to explore ways of regularizing status for undocumented workers. Since then, thousands of people have been deported, more than 7,000 in the first half of 2023. That's nearly 40 people per day, much higher than the last couple of years. Current Immigration Minister Mark Miller told the Globe and Mail he plans to submit a proposal to Cabinet in the spring on a program that would allow undocumented people to apply for permanent residency.
Every day that this program is not implemented, hundreds of thousands of people are being underpaid at work, are being separated from their families.
The immigration minister's office said it's exploring options for the program, but would not commit to a timeline. Meanwhile, there are more rallies planned across the country for Sunday and Monday. Todd?
All right, CTV's Kamal Karamali in Toronto. Thanks for that, Kamal. Coming up, is it a promising new treatment or is it a psychedelic party drug?
People can stop breathing, they can have seizures, they can have a coma, and if you're in a body of water and this happens, you can drown.
What we know about ketamine, the medication involved in actor Matthew Perry's death. New details about the death of actor Matthew Perry are putting a spotlight on the powerful drug ketamine. It's normally used as an anesthetic, but it's also used to treat cases of severe depression in both Canada and the United States. CTV's Tony Grace now on the effort to balance the benefits and the risks.
See what pills they had in there and steal them.
Matthew Perry's own confessions about drug addiction left lingering questions after his death in a hot tub.
Addiction is the obsession of your mind.
Medical examiners now say he died of the acute effects of ketamine, long used as a sedative, but now also used to treat severe depression. His heart condition also a factor in his death.
The acute effects of ketamine can include a lower heart rate, lower blood pressure. People can stop breathing, they can have seizures, they can have a coma. And if you're in a body of water and this happens, you can drown.
Officials say Perry was receiving ketamine therapy, but what they found in his system couldn't have come from his last reported treatment, since it clears the body in a few hours.
This is where the treatments happen, so the patient would come in here.
This Toronto clinic is one of a few in Canada offering medically supervised ketamine infusion therapy for severe depression, its founder having gone through it himself in the U.S.
That was me going, wow, like this is powerful. This needs to come to Canada.
He says they've helped around 200 people who haven't responded to other treatment.
It's got a very strong foothold in this, what I would consider a new frontier.
Health Canada now authorizes ketamine treatments in limited medical settings.
I think the need for effective treatments is significant within Canada and certainly around the globe as well.
But its continued use as a street drug has addictions experts on watch.
This is kind of a Pandora's box.
Saying it will be critical to monitor outcomes in the months and years ahead.
We got to make sure that we get the research and the administration and all the safeguards around that. So again, it's not going to be, the streets aren't going to be flooded with a very dangerous substance.
Health Canada says clinical trials are underway right now to see if ketamine could be safe and effective across a variety of therapies. But they warn they'll take swift action if new health risks are identified. Todd?
CTV's Tony Grace tonight. Thank you, Tony. All right, still ahead, a holiday far from home. A Ukrainian refugee celebrates a bittersweet first Christmas in Canada. Welcome back. Canada has welcomed more than 150,000 Ukrainians since Russia invaded Ukraine almost 2 years ago. Many are trying to make new lives here while hoping to eventually return home. And for some, this will be their first Christmas in our country, bringing their traditions and their hopes for peace. CTV's Olivia O'Malley reports from Montreal.
Well, Alla Telesnitska is trying to make her first Christmas in Montreal special. She can't stop thinking about who's missing. She says, my family's not here. The refugee and a few family members moved to Montreal in February. The rest of her loved ones are still in Ukraine. Telesnitska says she's happy she doesn't hear sirens, but adds she doesn't have the spirit of Christmas because it's hard to get her mind off what's going on in Ukraine. Despite this, she says they will still celebrate in traditional Ukrainian style. Singing carols and sharing meals with new friends. Eugene Malinowski and his wife have helped multiple Ukrainian families settle in Quebec.
I don't know about others, but I just can't sit and watch people struggle when I know I have so much and I can give so much.
The retiree says Ukrainians he's helped are grateful but face many challenges, including months-long delays to start French courses.
They're having a tough time finding apartments that they can afford. because of the gap between learning the language and finding a job.
Despite the challenges, the two families will continue to spend time together over the holiday. And with loved ones on her mind, Telesnitska says her Christmas wish is for the war to end. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News, Montreal.
After the break, a handcrafted holiday tradition. One woman's labor of love spanning more than 35 years. Finally for us tonight, indoors, outdoors, big or small, setting up a Christmas village next to a tree is a tradition for some families. But one woman in Saskatchewan you're about to meet takes it to the next level, building her village piece by piece for decades. And every year, she adds something new. CTV's Alison Bamford has more from Regina.
It's a world within Kim Jones's own home. Bustling streets, a church, library, restaurants, and little pieces of Jones's life.
We've named the town after Pat's dad's. So we have the Louisville police station. My mom was a big baker, so we have Mama's Cookies. We have Mary's Bed and Breakfast over there. And we have Klein and Associates, named after my dad.
75 structures, almost all are handmade by Jones and her father, using needlepoint and a plastic canvas.
I've been called lots of things. Crazy.
It's a crazy Christmas tradition that dates back around 35 years. The collection started with this skating rink bought by Jones's husband, one of the few structures that aren't made by hand.
Every year we just added to it. Dad made some, I made some, and carried on after Dad was gone until we have this.
Eventually, the collection outgrew its original spot on the coffee table and then the TV stand. Now the village takes up all 115 square feet of the living room.
I think it's awesome. I don't have to do much of the work. Well, there's some tables that go up and styrofoam, and we all know styrofoam is not heavy.
Jones does the heavy lifting. She spent 4 days setting this up, her biggest village yet. It seems the Christmas spirit brings out her competitive side.
Dad and I used to have a little bit of a decorating competition. We used to compete on how many lights we put on a tree too, and I won at 2,400.
But every competition must come to an end.
This year I added the last one, so I guess this is as big as it's going to be.
This is the last house to move into Louisville. While the village won't grow any bigger, Jones still plans to turn the lights on every Christmas. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Love it. That's it for us tonight. I'm Todd Vanderheyden. For Heather Butts and all of us here at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Have a great night. I'll see you again right here tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.
This has made you a target.
5 crucial questions to expose the truth.
He made a mistake. That's stunning.
One team uncovers the stories that need to be told. Watch W5, Fridays at 10 on CTV.